They're still trying to figure out how you did it, how you walked away without a single word, without a trace of hesitation, without looking back even once. Welcome back, you unstoppable force. You quiet storm, you living paradox they've been losing sleep over. Yes, you. The one they've been obsessing about, rewatching every old conversation with, questioning everything they thought they understood. The one they labeled, categorized, placed in their mental filing system under predictable and manageable. Then something shifted, something fundamental changed, something inside you rewired itself completely. And now they're standing there frozen, watching their assumptions crumble, their carefully constructed narratives falling apart, repeating the same desperate question on an endless loop. How did this happen? I'll tell you exactly how it happened. You walked off their stage. That's how. You stopped dimming your light to make them comfortable, stopped compressing yourself into their tiny boxes of what they could handle, stopped performing the watered-down version of yourself they needed to maintain their illusions of superiority. You didn't make an announcement, didn't broadcast your transformation, didn't leave breadcrumbs explaining where you were going. You simply shifted into a new reality, and now they're spiraling, recalculating, completely rewriting everything they believed about who you were. Because whatever shift you made, it devastated their entire worldview. It shook their foundation so hard, their whole perception of you came crashing down like a house of cards in a hurricane. And here's the beautiful irony. You're not even performing anymore. You're simply being, existing in your authentic form. And that authenticity alone is sending their fragile little world into complete meltdown. They had you decoded, didn't they? They thought they knew your ceiling, your breaking points, your predictable responses. They observed you like researchers, documented what made you retreat, what made you explain yourself, what made you compromise. They constructed their entire identity on the foundation that you were less than them, that you depended on their presence, that you'd forever be catching up to where they already were. Then you committed the ultimate transgression. You transformed without asking for their input. You ascended without seeking their blessing. You became untouchable without needing their encouragement. And now they're staring at you like you're some kind of incomprehensible phenomenon, some energy they can't label, some existence that short-circuits everything they thought they knew about how power works. Here's the thing. They're not angry about your transformation. They're angry you transformed without involving them. They're not disturbed by your expansion. They're disturbed you expanded beyond their reach. They're not intimidated by what you've accomplished. They're intimidated because your accomplishment exists in a universe that doesn't orbit around them, doesn't require them, doesn't even register their existence. What you executed, consciously or not, was a complete removal of yourself from their influence. You stopped being a piece they could move and became an entirely separate board they can't access. You stopped being a character in their narrative and became the author of your own story. And now every attempt they make, every calculated word they choose, every pitiful grab at reclaiming relevance just highlights how absolutely powerless they've become. Watch them now, desperately trying to pinpoint the turning point. They're replaying every exchange, reviewing every text thread, dissecting every moment like detectives at an unsolved case. They're consulting their inner circle. Did something change in their energy? When exactly did they become this way? Who influenced this transformation? Because in their framework, someone external must have coached you. Someone must have given you the secret formula. Someone must have downloaded the upgrade into your system. Because the alternative, the reality that's poisoning them from within, is that you discovered it independently, that you evolved naturally, that you became this powerful, this unreachable, this impossibly elevated without requiring a single thing from their world. And that truth is consuming them like slow poison. They're discussing you in this very moment. Absolutely they are. Not directly with you, never that vulnerable, always about you. In their private channels, during their restless nights, in their minds when dawn breaks and they still haven't found peace. They're decoding your quietness like it contains encrypted intelligence. They're interpreting your space like it's a tactical maneuver they need to neutralize. They're examining your detachment like it's a weapon they need to disarm. Your quietness, your absolutely crushing quietness, speaks volumes beyond anything they could vocalize. Your physical absence creates more impact than their frantic attempts to remain noticed. Your complete non-reaction carries more weight than any words you could have chosen. You stopped offering explanations, and that alone fractured their understanding of reality. You stopped defending your decisions, your limits, your metamorphosis, and they're completely lost. They're conditioned to people justifying themselves endlessly, conditioned to people desperately seeking external approval, conditioned to people requiring validation from the collective. But you simply opted out of their entire performance. You didn't resist, didn't debate, didn't attempt to prove your worth. You just wore that calm expression, that maddening, peaceful expression, and moved forward. And that expression, that quietness, that absolute refusal to engage, it's inflicting more damage on their sense of self than any confrontation could achieve. Because you're not opposing them, you're not even considering them, and that becomes the most crushing reality they've ever confronted. They interpreted silence as submission. They interpreted distance as their victory. They interpreted your non-response as confirmation they dominated the situation. How mistaken they were. Your silence wasn't capitulation. It was claiming your throne. Your distance wasn't running away. It was rising above. Your non-response wasn't fragility. It was understanding. You recognize something they'll spend lifetimes missing. That certain people don't deserve your words, your essence, your focus. That certain conflicts aren't worth entering because you've already transcended by refusing participation. That the ultimate demonstration of strength isn't conquest. It's complete emotional independence. And now they're drowning in that reality, gasping under the crushing weight of meaning absolutely nothing to you. Observe them carefully. Observe how they suddenly increase their visibility, amplify their efforts, extend themselves in patterns they previously never showed. Observe how your name surfaces in discussions you're nowhere near. Observe how they create excuses to monitor your journey, to verify what you're building, to measure whether their void has registered in your world at all. Because your silence carved a hollow space in their existence, and they're frantically attempting to fill it with anything that makes noise. They desperately need confirmation you're thinking about them, longing for them, affected by their absence, but you're not. And every sunrise that arrives without you initiating contact, without you offering explanations, without you demonstrating any concern whatsoever, becomes another sunrise their identity bleeds significance. The most amusing part, they'll never acknowledge it openly. They'll never voice that you penetrated their defenses, that you won completely, that they're consumed with unraveling your mystery. Instead, they'll disguise it as care. I'm simply concerned about their well-being. They've transformed into someone unrecognizable. They're not who they used to be. Translation: I'm terrified they've evolved past my level and I possess no strategy to diminish them back down. They'll label you cold, label you changed, label you unreachable, but what they're actually communicating is you've become someone I can't control anymore. And that terrifies me beyond words. Your evolution exposed their stagnation. Your expansion revealed their limitations, and they cannot forgive you for holding up that mirror. They're still investigating, still attempting to trace the exact coordinates where you transformed. Was it something someone revealed? Was it knowledge you absorbed? Was it some hidden wisdom they're excluded from? They're examining your history like archaeologists on a dig, hunting for evidence, desperate for the catalyst. Because within their narrow perception, change requires an external source. Transformation requires a guide. Evolution requires instructions. But you burned every map they handed you and walked straight through the flames until you carved your own path forward. You didn't need someone holding your hand through it, didn't need a mentor explaining each step, didn't need anyone validating your direction. You needed pain, and you had an abundance of that. You needed pressure, and they supplied it generously. You needed to be forced to your absolute edge, and they did the forcing. So in truth, they sculpted you. They just haven't connected those dots yet. What you did wasn't singular. It wasn't one revelation, one choice, one moment of clarity. It was countless small transformations. It was every instance you absorbed the blow and survived it. Every moment you grieved alone and emerged reinforced. Every time you wanted to explode but selected stillness as your response. Every time you experienced betrayal and refused to let it poison you. Every time you faced abandonment and refused to become someone who begs. Every time you were completely misunderstood and refused to exhaust yourself, providing clarity. You went through death and rebirth so frequently, they lost track of the count. And each resurrection brought you back altered, more refined, more focused, more separated from their frequency, until eventually you stopped returning to their level at all. You were ascending to dimensions they can't perceive. The strategy they can't duplicate is that you stopped requiring them. Not dramatically, not as some public display of moving forward, but in an authentic, complete, fundamental way. You didn't substitute them with superior replacements. You didn't patch the emptiness with new faces. You filled it with yourself, with your own presence, your own principles, your own tranquility. You became so integrated within yourself that their existence became optional background noise. Their perspectives became irrelevant static. Their approval became meaningless currency. And this becomes the move that will haunt them indefinitely because they cannot comprehend how someone thrives without external validation. They cannot process how someone flourishes in their own company. They cannot accept the fact that you genuinely don't need anyone's permission to exist fully, especially not theirs. They're questioning each other. Who revealed this to them? Where did they learn this level of detachment? And the answer is absolutely destroying them internally. You taught yourself. You extracted lessons from every scar they created. You analyzed every betrayal like academic material. You converted every letdown into momentum. You transformed their cruelty into your education and their abandonment into your field study. They pushed you into the void, and you're the one who learned to navigate it blind. You're the one who discovered strength there. You're the one who constructed an empire from the destruction they assumed would eliminate you. So yes, someone taught you. They did. They just failed to realize they were engineering their own irrelevance, and now they're trapped. Trapped observing you from outside the glass. Trapped analyzing your movements. Trapped attempting to decode your frequency. Trapped in an infinite loop of fascination and resentment they cannot escape because you've become the benchmark they cannot achieve, the enigma they cannot solve, the elevation they'll never access. And every time they witness you completely unbothered, flourishing, radiating without their involvement, it confirms that whatever you executed worked so devastatingly well that their egos are now barely functioning, and you're the one who could end it. And the most exquisite part, you're not even contemplating that option. you're not contemplating them at all. Let's discuss the actual reason their world is collapsing. It's not merely that you evolved, it's the way you evolved. They anticipated the standard pattern, the familiar trajectory. They assumed if they wounded you, you'd shatter. If they dismissed you, you'd pursue. If they abandoned you, you'd plead. If they replaced you, you'd compete desperately. If they disrespected you, you'd defend yourself loudly, emotionally, frantically. That's their playbook. That's their comfort zone. That's the sequence they've witnessed unfold countless times with countless others. But you shattered the pattern. You refused to deliver the satisfaction of a predictable breakdown. Instead, you withdrew, went invisible, turned inward, and emerged as something completely unexpected. You didn't become resentful. You became discerning. You didn't become furious. You became apathetic. You didn't become shattered. You became indestructible. You didn't become desperate for resolution. You became peaceful with ambiguity. You didn't need their apologies, didn't need their comprehension, didn't need their acknowledgement of your experience. You simply continued forward, not with declarations and fanfare, but with a silence so profound it became its own message. And that silence, that metamorphosis, that refusal to participate in their games, it obliterated their entire understanding of who they thought you were. They assumed you were malleable. You revealed titanium. They assumed you depended on them. You revealed complete autonomy. They assumed you'd collapse. You revealed infinite resurrection. The transformation they never predicted was you becoming someone who doesn't pursue revenge because you've transcended the desire for it. Someone who doesn't need to validate anything because your existence validates itself. Someone who doesn't need closure because you've mastered writing your own conclusions. They expected drama, turbulence, emotional explosions, public accusations. Instead, they received silence, development, discipline, and a version of you that's completely foreign to them. And that unrecognizable version carries more power than anything they could have prepared for because it signifies you're not operating in their reality anymore. You're not following their rule book. You're not even participating in their game. You've constructed your own dimension and they're permanently excluded. They're observing you now, and nothing computes. How are you so centered? How are you so unaffected? How are you succeeding without them? How are you glowing, expanding, progressing like they were never a factor in your story? Because in their minds, they were supposed to be significant. Their presence was supposed to matter profoundly. Their absence was supposed to devastate you. But you've demonstrated the most devastating truth of all, that people are replaceable, but inner peace is irreplaceable, that connections are temporary, but self-worth is eternal, that their role in your life was microscopic compared to what they imagined, and your role in your own life is infinitely larger than they could ever comprehend, and that realization is systematically destroying everything they thought they knew about their own importance. The hilarious irony is they still believe they have an opportunity. They still believe if they just articulate the perfect words, execute the perfect gesture, appear at the perfect moment, you'll soften, you'll remember the positive memories, you'll grant them another chance. But what they fundamentally misunderstand is that you're not harboring resentment. You're not waiting for apologies. You're not maintaining a scorecard. You've simply migrated to a frequency they cannot access anymore. You're functioning on a level of awareness that categorically excludes them. And no amount of reaching out, no amount of manufactured nostalgia, no amount of performative concern is going to bridge that dimensional gap. Because the evolution you experience wasn't about leaving them in your past. It was about discovering yourself in your future. And the future is your permanent residence now. Here's what's truly shattering them. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped justifying your boundaries, your decisions, your space. You stopped attempting to make them comprehend why you had to exit, why you had to transform, why you couldn't continue distributing pieces of yourself to people who treated you as expendable. You simply stopped. And that silence, that refusal to explain, that withholding of closure, it's driving them to the edge of sanity, because people like them require explanations. They need you to articulate everything so they can argue against it, manipulate around it, distort it. But you didn't provide that ammunition. You didn't provide anything at all. You just vanished into your own evolution and left them with nothing except unanswered questions. They're asking themselves endlessly, what did I do wrong? Why did they transform? Why won't they communicate anymore? And the most poetic irony is they already possess every answer. Deep beneath all the denial and deflection, they know precisely what they did. They know how they mistreated you. They know the disrespect they demonstrated, the boundaries they violated, the trust they destroyed. They know everything, but they were banking on you being too compassionate, too forgiving, too desperate for human connection to actually enforce accountability. They were counting on you explaining your pain so they could minimize it, dismiss it, rewrite the entire narrative. But you didn't explain anything. You just departed, and now they're sitting with their own conscience, their own memories, their own guilt, and nobody to grant them absolution. The power you're wielding right now is the power of silence, the power of not needing to be understood by people who were never genuinely trying to understand you in the first place. The power of not wasting your energy on explanations that will land on closed minds. The power of knowing that some people will never comprehend, and that's perfectly acceptable because you don't need them to anymore. You've learned that closure is something you grant yourself, not something you wait for others to provide. You've realized that understanding is a privilege you reserve for people who've earned it, not an obligation you owe to everyone who demands it. And that shift, that refusal to over-explain, over-justify, over-share, it's made you untouchable in a way that's driving them absolutely insane. They're accustomed to people who explain everything, who defend constantly, who dissect their every thought and emotion in desperate attempts to be seen and validated. But you've become a locked vault, a sealed book, a mystery they'll never decode because you're not interested in being analyzed by them anymore. You've reclaimed your story. You've taken back your narrative. You've decided that your inner world is sacred territory, and not everyone deserves access. And that decision, that boundary, that refusal to explain, it's not cruelty. It's self-preservation, it's dignity. It's the most powerful move you could have made. And they despise it because they can't manipulate what they can't understand, and they can't understand what you won't explain. So let them wonder endlessly. Let them ask their questions into the empty void. Let them seek answers from everyone except the one person who holds them, which is you. And watch how you don't care enough to respond. Let them construct their own narratives about what happened. Let them fill in the missing pieces with their own assumptions and projections. Let them rewrite history to soothe their wounded egos. Because while they're busy trying to decode your evolution, you're busy living it fully. While they're stuck analyzing the past obsessively, you're building the future intentionally. While they're obsessing over what they lost, you're celebrating what you discovered, yourself. And that is the ultimate demonstration of power. Not explaining, not defending, not caring whatsoever,